The law is relatively clear on this point that in order to be a public disturbance, the public has to be disturbed. And I think it's frustrating for a lot of people, myself included, that this didn't constitute an offense as charged. But given the precedence in this case, that there's a decision for the Supreme Court of Canada from the early 90s where two neighbors were hurling insults at each other, and one of them faced charges under the same section of the criminal code. And it was found there too that without the presence of a public and the disturbance of the public, the criteria for the charge wasn't met. It's important to note that the judge's decision in this case doesn't mean that saying that phrase to a journalist is always okay, right? He was very careful to note that it was in this particular circumstance with this particular charge, the criteria wasn't met. If it was another charge, if it was under a different framework of the law, maybe he would have been held responsible in a different way.
There's been some talk since this that the law needs to change. We've seen Kathy Bennett raise this issue. Do you think that the law needs to change, or do they just need to change perhaps what section they look at when they're dealing with these sorts of offenses?
In terms of a more general change in the law to address these type of things, I think that definitely would be helpful. I mean, England, as Judge Flynn in this decision pointed out, England actually brought in a Public Order Act that has specific sections relating to this type of behavior. When something vulgar, threatening, sexual is repeatedly hurled at women while they're working, I think that means that it's time for the law to adapt.
What do you think the impact is going to be? And I guess it's hard to predict because a lot of the people who are shouting this phrase may not necessarily be fully thinking about what they're doing before they do it. But what sort of impact do you think this decision will have? And even the fact that someone could still be charged because the police have said continue to report these sorts of incidences, they'll continue to investigate and could lay more charges.
That's right. Well, I think that Heather Gillis needs to be commended for the courage and the persistence to stick through to this, and certainly her efforts were not in vain. The individual in this case not only confessed, but it's now public. He's got to face that kind of shame and that notoriety for a long time, and hopefully that other people, the type of idiots that would hurl that type of insult and engage in that behavior, hopefully they see this not as an encouragement because he was let off on it, but the fact that courts and police and crown attorneys are all taking this very seriously, and that there will eventually maybe be a conviction in this, and if not, there's still very dire consequences for people who are charged with it.